Let's see. All right, and we are live. Beautiful. Hello and welcome to Space Chat. My name is Chelsea, and this probably looks a little different if you've been here before. So to those of you that have followed Space Chat or watched these videos in the past, thank you for your patience the last couple of weeks while I was out. I was actually out getting married and am now in a brand new studio space. So it looks a little bare at the moment, but bear with me if you can. And in the coming weeks, I hope to make this a lot more colorful, a lot more spacey. But without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome all. This, for those who have not been here before, this is the weekly show where I go live here on space.com and I talk about what's going on in space, what new science is happening, what's launching, and I answer your questions live. So let me just make sure that this is all working and I'm not talking to no one, and then we will be all good to go. All right, so just give me 10 seconds and I'm gonna just double check. All right, so I'm just going to continue, and if I need to repeat myself, if we are not live and things are not working as planned in the new space, so be it. So, without further ado, welcome to Space Chat. Today, I will be talking about what's been going on in space and science. I'll be discussing William Shatner's upcoming flight to real space, the real final frontier. I'll be talking about SpaceX's brand new mission launching Halloween weekend, an erupting volcano, and so much more. So as always, space is a busy place, and this past week has been no exception. The excitement started to build for 2 new crewed flights to space. First up is this upcoming Tuesday, October 12th. This will be Blue Origin's second crewed space flight as it launches another group of 4 passengers to suborbital space and then back to Earth. Oh, sorry. Things are live. This group of 4 will be launching just above the boundary of space and then back to Earth. Now, while all the passengers on board are certainly unique and interesting, and as things happen this way, one spaceflight passenger has sparked quite a sensation. And that is actor William Shatner. Shatner's claim to fame is in his role as Captain James T. Kirk in the original Star Trek series, which premiered in 1966. Now, as some of you might know, while Star Trek actually kind of flopped when it first premiered, shockingly now, it has grown into not just one of the most successful sci-fi franchises in media history, but one of the most successful franchises in general. With a multitude of follow-up series that continue to this day with new series seemingly happening all the time, and the fan base not just continuing from the 60s, but growing. So while Shatner has, as a person, not an actor, stirred up his fair share of controversy in his decades in the spotlight, many are definitely still interested and curious to see him launch to the real final frontier. Shatner will also break the record for oldest person to ever go to space. Shatner is now 90 years old. And previously, for just a few months, the title has been held by Wally Funk, a pioneering aviator who was part of the original Mercury 13, who was on the first crewed Blue Origin suborbital flight. Now, Wally at 82, she beat the previous record for oldest person in space, but with 8 years on her, Shatner will now make that his title. So he will be the oldest person to ever travel to space, suborbital or orbital, anywhere. Now, the rest of the crew includes Audrey Powers, Blue Origin's Vice President of Mission and Flight Operations, Chris Boschweizen. I apologize, Chris, if I butchered your name there. I will learn how to pronounce it better in the future. And he co-founded Planet Labs, now known as just Planet, and Glenn DeVry, who co-founded the software company Metadata. So a pretty interesting crew. And I'm curious what the rest of the crew has to say about flying with Shatner, who is quite a character. I've spoken to him a few times and a lot of personality. Holy cow, they're gonna have a good time. Now, this launch follows Blue Origin's first crewed launch this past July, in which Blue Origin founder Jeff Bezos, his brother Mark, Wally Funk, who I mentioned before, and a Dutch teenager, Oliver Damon, took an approximately 10-ish minute flight above the Kármán line, an internationally recognized boundary of space, and back to Earth. Now, these suborbital flights launch on Blue Origin's New Shepard vehicle. They, on average, are supposed to last about 11 minutes. The first one lasted about 10. We'll see how long Shatner's lasts. And I think it's going to be really interesting. The crews will experience a few minutes of weightlessness when they're in space before they come back to Earth. Now, this is a pretty short trip, just around 11 minutes, but this short trip will be followed by a much longer trip to space. While on October 30th, SpaceX's Crew 3 mission will launch on a 6-month trip to space. Now, this is an average space station stay, but compared to the two, it is significantly longer. So this crew of 4 will be launching to the space station for 6 months of hard work. Now, this mission, it'll launch just a little before 3 a.m. From NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And on board are NASA astronauts Raj Achari, who will be commanding the mission, Tom Marshburn, and Kayla Barron. And there will also be a European Space Agency astronaut on board, Matthias Maurer. And they'll be flying a SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule that will launch on top of a Falcon 9 rocket. Now, these 4 will join the crowd already on the space station and spend their 6 months doing a ton of amazing science. They're launching with about 350 scientific experiments. They'll be studying human health, materials research, doing tech demos, all kinds of amazing, amazing science, which is the point. So it's so amazing to see them highlight that science and to be really pushing that forward. Now, in addition to their heavy science workload, as well as some space station maintenance, spacewalks, the astronauts will also be interacting with a number of private astronauts along their mission. A few days ago, a pair of Russian filmmakers, an actress and a director-producer, flew together and arrived at the station to film a movie on the orbiting lab. The movie will be called The Challenge, and from what I understand, it deals with a medical emergency. Obviously a completely fictional medical emergency in space. So I think that'll be really interesting. There will also be private astronauts expected to arrive during this mission from Axiom. And in December, Japanese billionaire Yusaku Maezawa is set to come aboard with a video producer for a short stay. So lots of crazy stuff. The space station is getting busier every day. But moving on from crazy space flights, let's get into volcanoes. Now, the La Palma volcanic eruption continues to go on. The volcano, called the La Cumbre Vieja volcano on the island of La Palma in Spain's Canary Islands, has been erupting since September 19th. So it's really been going on for quite some time. The eruption can be seen from space, and satellites orbiting Earth have been snapping photos of, literal lava, insane plumes of smoke, concentric cloud rings that have been created by the volcano. So far, thousands have been made to evacuate. Lava flows are tearing through the towns and neighborhoods, farms, roads. It's really a really scary, unbelievable eruption. And at the same time, another eruption extreme enough to be seen from space is happening in Hawaii. So it is one natural disaster after the other. Now, jumping a little bit farther out from Earth, all the way out into the solar system, all the way out into the Kuiper Belt, something strange has been going on with Pluto. In a new study, researchers have found evidence that the icy dwarf planet's atmosphere is actually disappearing. Pluto is very far from the sun. It's about 39.5 astronomical units. And 1 astronomical unit is the distance between Earth and the sun. So this means that Pluto is almost 40 times the distance between Earth and the sun. So it is extremely far out into the solar system, which is why it's so icy, why it's so cold. Now, despite it being very far out, the dwarf planet does have an elliptical orbit. So instead of shaped like a circle, it's shaped a little more like this. So at some points in its orbit going around the sun, it's going to be a little bit closer, and sometimes it's going to be a little bit farther away. Now, when it's closer, That just means it's going to be a little bit warmer. And the icy material on Pluto's surface will warm up and add to its atmosphere, turning into vapor. However, like right now, when Pluto is very, very far from the sun, it's very cold. And that means that the vapors in its atmosphere actually refreeze back onto the surface of Pluto. So essentially, Pluto's atmosphere goes through these periods where it kind of disappears, which is just so bizarre. And scientists are watching this all the way from Earth. Now, catching our breath, gonna have a little bit of a sip of something. Hope you're all staying hydrated as well. Lastly, for all you sky watchers out there, the Draconid meteor shower, it peaks tonight. So this is an annual meteor shower, and tonight will be the peak. It'll be best visible just after dusk when the moon is dim enough so its bright light doesn't obscure the view too badly. Now, this shower happens every October, and it happens because in Earth's orbit around the sun, it passes through the debris left behind in the trail or tail of the comet 21P/Giacobini-Zinner. It's a very long comet name. Moral of the story, every October, our planet, in its path around the sun, passes through a little patch of debris left behind by this comet. So the meteor shower will be visible through the 10th, but tonight will be their best chance at getting a good show. But you might get a good show tomorrow as well, but tonight is the peak. So if you are into sky watching, or you want to be into sky watching, you haven't done it yet, you want to go outside and see something cool, tonight might be a good night to test that out. So thank you all. Without further ado, I'm going to check something out. I am going to check out all of your comments. And again, if you've been here before and this seems a little bit different than usual, it's because it is. It's because I'm in a new space. It's a completely new setup that I am just starting to set up. I just arrived. So things are going to be a little bit crazy today, a little bit challenging, but I appreciate your patience. So if you have not gotten the chance to ask a question yet, and if you have any questions about Shatner, about Pluto, about anything space or science, if it's inappropriate or weird, I'll just ignore it. If you have any interesting questions that you really want answered, I would love to answer them. So you can pop those down into the comments below, and I'm going to go turn over here and read them and go through as many of them as possible. And as I say often, there is no such thing as a dumb question. There can be a rude question, but there's no such thing as a dumb question. Curiosity is science. The basis of science is curiosity. So if you have a question, please ask it. All right, let me check this out. Just going to take a little extra time, just a couple seconds. Let's see. All right. Okay, hello. Lots of hellos in here. Hello to you all as well. Someone says they're in space and they don't see me. I would like to know if you are really in space. I doubt it, but that is interesting. Yes, Kirk is launching. Definitely. Hello as well. Tron1 on YouTube is very excited to see William Shatner launch. Very exciting. And no, he will not be going warp speed. I've seen this question. I've seen it before. I have it all over my email. He will not be going warp speed. It's a very funny joke, but he will be going exactly the speed as the rest of the crew and as the previous New Shepard suborbital flight. Okay. Yes, people are really excited about Shatner. Awesome. Okay, curious about Kepler. Not sure what you're curious about. Kepler system, different Kepler planets. When we think of Kepler, we can think of telescopes. It's a name associated with a lot of really cool science and space. El Picasso asks, is Mercury still a planet? Yes, definitely. So Mercury is small, so that's a totally fair question, but it is still a planet. Now, people like to talk about, well, Pluto's still a planet in my heart, and that's totally fair. Pluto is still classified as a dwarf planet. However, unlike Mercury, a full solar system planet, Pluto just didn't it didn't pass all the criteria that an object needs to pass in order to be a planet. It's not just that it's small. Planets, they have to, there are certain qualifications they have to meet. And one of those is they have to successfully clear their orbital paths. So like I mentioned, even though it's not a full planet, Pluto is orbiting around the sun like all these other objects in the solar system. And large planets like Earth, like Mars, like Venus, they clear their orbital path as they go, making space, basically carving out their path and their space in the solar system, their orbit. Pluto doesn't do that quite as well or quite the same. And that is one of the multitude of reasons why it is not classified. However, Mercury checks all the boxes. Mercury is totally a planet. All right. Oh, you like this show. Thank you very much. Where is William Shatner? Well, William Shatner isn't in space yet. William Shatner is actually at Comic-Con, and we have our correspondent Diana Whitcroft there right now, and she actually just attended his panel in which he spoke about the upcoming flight, and I quote, William Shatner said, "I'm terrified," which, if you've seen him speak before, not as an actor, you know that he's full of personality, so I think that he is just being very expressive, but it's fair. I'd be scared. I'm sure he's scared. I'm sure everyone that's ever gone to space has a part of them that's a little bit scared because you don't know exactly what's going to happen. However, the New Shepard Blue Origin launch this summer went off very smoothly. The crew was completely safe, and it really was a total triumph, a total success. So if this is anything like that, he has nothing to worry about. All right. Oh my goodness, these are some interesting ones. All right. You love space and the universe, science, physics. Excellent. Awesome. Oh, Yashuka asks, what is being done for us to really be the Mars generation? That's an interesting question. I'm not 100% sure what you mean by it. However, when we talk about the Mars generation, it means that these younger generations, younger than I, kids, they might grow up like how we're seeing people launch for the space station. They could grow up watching people launch to Mars. And one of the main things that's being done for that right now is with NASA's Artemis program. So Artemis aims to return humans to the moon for a sustained presence on the lunar surface. However, the moon is going to be basically a springboard for getting to Mars, not just, in terms of actually getting there, but in testing technologies. In fact, NASA has given a contract to SpaceX for its Starship vehicle as a lunar lander. Starship is also designed with the hope of getting people to Mars. So by continuing to develop these technologies and to test them, not just on Earth, not just in low Earth orbit, but going out further to the moon, we're getting closer. And NASA does still think that in the 2030s, it is possible that we will land a human on Mars. And we did land a rover on Mars just a few months ago. So we really are getting there step by step. Space is hard. Getting to Mars is, it is not an easy thing, but they're getting there. They are getting there. Andrew, great question. Will we set up permanent or semi-permanent bases on the moon before doing the same on Mars? Yes. So that's what's going to happen with Artemis. I don't know if the bases will technically be fully formed before the first crewed mission is sent to Mars. However, we're not just going to the moon like we did in Apollo. These aren't going to be just short trips where we jet down to the surface, check it out, get some amazing science and samples, come right back to Earth. Now, the first might be a little bit like that, testing the waters. However, the goal that NASA has is to have bases on the moon, to have people staying there for an extended period of time. In fact, they're developing something called the Gateway, which is essentially a space station that will circle around the moon, and astronauts can go to the station, to the moon, to the station, to Earth, to keep that as a sustained presence. Interesting. Yes, we shouldn't rush. Absolutely, I totally agree. I'm excited to see this progress continue, but in order to do so safely, ethically, etc., it's about taking the time that it requires. Not dilly-dallying, but taking the time that it requires to do it right. And that is really NASA's MO. In fact, I spoke recently with NASA Administrator Bill Nelson, and that was a huge thing he had to say in that, you know, we're going to make this happen, but we're going to do it safely. We're going to do it the right way. And on that note, doing things the right way, I am going to leave you to continue discussing in the comments. Thank you all so much for joining me for Space Chat this week. I hope to be back with a more complete setup and perhaps some extra fun next week. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.